A strange man moved into our house a week ago. My parents treat him like a god, and he's never said a single word. I don't know what to do. I'm writing this from a plastic chair in a hospital waiting. It smells like bleach and quiet despair. My parents are in a room down the hall, in a coma, and the doctors keep using words like unprecedented and unexplained. But I know what happened. I was there. I watched it happen. And the worst part, the part that is hollowing me out from the inside, is that I think I could have stopped it sooner. My life, up until a week ago, was normal. Boring, even. I'm 18. Just finished the soul-crushing marathon of high school final exam. My parents are good people. Quiet, loving, a little old-fashioned. My dad is an immigrant. Came here with nothing, and has no family in this country. My mom was an orphan, raised in the system. So, it's always just been the three of us. A small, tight-knit, unremarkable little. After my last exam, I came home and crashed. I was so physically drained that I slept for nearly 24 hours straight. It was a deep, dreamless, black hole kind of sleep. When I finally woke up, it was the next morning. The sun was streaming through my window, and for the first time in months, I felt light. The weight of school was gone. I felt free. I went downstairs to the kitchen, expecting to find my mom making coffee, the house smelling of toast and the comfortable quiet of Saturday morning. My parents were there, but they weren't alone. Sitting at our small kitchen table, in my chair, was a man I had never seen before. He was maybe in his mid-30s. He had long, straight black hair that fell past his shoulders, a stark contrast to pale skin. But his eyes were the first thing you noticed. They were a shocking, brilliant, jaundiced yellow, the color of a canary or a fresh goose, and they were fixed on the bowl of cereal in front of him with unnerving intensity. My parents looked up as I entered, and they smiled. Not their normal, warm smile. These were bright, brittle, and a little too wide. "Good morning, sleepyhead," my mom chirped, her voice a full octave higher than usual. Come, join us. There's someone we want you to meet." I just stood there, dumbfounded. A million questions were swirling in my head, but none of them could find their way to my mouth. "This is a relative of ours," my dad said, gesturing towards the man with a strained, almost reverent sweep of his hand. "He's been out of the country for a very long time. He's going to be staying with us for a while." I finally found my voice. "A relative? What relative? You don't have any relative here. And Mom, you don't have any at all." The bright smiles on my parents' faces faltered for a fraction of a second. A flicker of something, panic, annoyance, passed through their eyes before the manic cheerfulness snapped back in place. "Oh, you know, a distant cousin," my mom said, waving a dismissive hand. "From your father's side. It's a long story. We'll tell you all about it later. Now, sit. Have some breakfast." I sat. The meal was the most uncomfortable, unnerving 20 minutes of my life. The man never spoke. He never looked up his bowl. He ate with a slow, deliberate precision, lifting the spoon to his mouth and back down without a single wasted move. My parents, however, never stopped talking. They kept up a frantic, one-sided stream of chatter directed at him, answering questions he never asked, laughing at jokes he never told. "The weather is lovely today, isn't it?" my mom said to him. "You always did love the sun. We'll have to take you to the park later," my dad added. Just like old times. It was like they were reading from a script, or like they were hearing a conversation that I couldn't. It was insane. Later that day, when I got my dad alone, I pressed him. "Dad, seriously, who was that guy? Where did he come from?" My father's face went cold. The forced cheerfulness vanished, replaced by a stern, hard mask I hadn't seen since I was a little kid who had broken a rule. "His name is not your concern," he said, his voice low and flat. "He is our guest. You will treat him with respect. You will not ask any more questions. This is not up for discussion." And that was it. The conversation was over. The first few days were a masterclass in quiet, creeping dread. The man remained a silent, unnerving presence in our home. He never spoke a word. Not one. I tried, once. I found him alone in the living room, just standing in the center of the room, staring at a blank wall. "Look," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I don't know who you are, or what you're doing here, but this is my home." And I never got to finish. My parents appeared in the doorway as if summoned from thin air. "Don't be rude to our guest," my mother snapped, her voice sharp with a panic I didn't understand. "He is family. Apologize." I just stared at them, then at the silent man with the yellow eyes, and I retreated to my room. The house started to feel less like my home and more like a temple dedicated to this silent, creepy stranger. The power dynamic shift in ways that were both subtle and terrifying. At dinner, my mother would serve his plate first, and then we would all have to wait. We weren't allowed to take a single bite until he had finished his entire meal, which he always ate with the same slow, methodical pace. Only when his plate was clean were we permitted to eat our own, now cold off. Then, we were forbidden from speaking to him direct. "If you have something to say, you say it to us," my dad instructed, his face grim. We will relay the mess. It was absurd. He was sitting right there, but I saw the look in my father's eyes. It was not a suggestion. It was a command. The worst part was the lock. It was the spare bedroom upstairs, the one we used for storage. They cleared it out, and they started spending hours in there with the door locked from the inside. My mom would take him a tray of food, and then she and my dad would go in with, and they wouldn't come out until long after dark. I couldn't stand it. The mystery was eating me alive. I had to know what was happening in there. Last night, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I waited until they were all in the room. I crept up the stairs, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The old house has old doors, with old-fashioned keyholes. I knelt down, my hands trembling, and put my eye to cold brass. The room was dark, lit only by a few dozen candles they had arranged floor. The air inside seemed to shimmer, and in the center of the room, he was standing. His posture was ramrod straight, like a statue, his head tilted back and his long, thin arms raised towards the ceiling, his fingers splayed. He was utterly, unnaturally still. And my parents were on the floor in front of him, on their knees. They were prostrated before him, their bodies shaking, their heads bowed to the ground, and they were whispering, a low, rhythmic, frantic stream of gibberish, a language that wasn't a language, a sound of pure, terrified devotion. They weren't hosting a relative, they were worshipping a god. I scrambled back from the door, a wave of nausea and terror washing. This was wrong. This was a sickness. My parents were in some kind of cult, and this man was their leader. They were in danger. I was in danger. I ran to my room, locked the door, and I called the police. My hands were shaking so badly, barely dialed the number. I whispered into the phone, telling the operator that there was a strange man in my house, that my parents were acting erratic, that I was scared for our safety. They said they would send a car over immediately. I hung up, a small sliver of relief cutting through my panic. Help was coming. Knock. The soft, polite knock on my bedroom door made my blood to ice. I didn't move. I barely breathed. Knock. I knew who it was. I had never heard him move through the house. He was always just there. But I knew. I slowly, shakily, stood up and opened the... He was standing there. The man with the long black hair, terrible yellow eyes. And for the very first time since he had arrived in my home, he was looking directly at me, and he was smiling. It was a wide, thin-lipped, maniacal grin, a grotesque slash of white in his pale face. It was a smile of pure, triumphant malice. All the fear, all the confusion of the past week erupted out of me a single, raw scream. Who are you? What have you done to them? Get out of my house. The police are coming for you. You hear me? They're coming. He didn't say a word. The horrible smile never wavered. He just held my gaze for a long, silent moment. And then he turned, as calmly as if going for a stroll, and walked down the stairs. I followed him, stumbling, my mind a blank roar of terror and rage. He walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped outside. He didn't run. He just walked down the quiet, suburban street, his tall, thin figure silhouetted against the streetlight, until he turned a corner and was gone. I ran back upstairs, screaming for my parents. I found them on the floor of the spare bedroom, amidst the extinguished candle. They were lying on their side, unconscious, their faces pale and slack. They were breathing, but it was shallow, faint. They wouldn't wake up. The police arrived a few minutes later. It was a blur of flashing light, professional voices, and questions I couldn't properly answer. I told them everything. The man, his yellow eyes, the way my parents were acting, the room upstairs, him leaving just moments before they arrived. I gave them his description. Every single detail burned into my memory. An ambulance came and took my parents away. I stayed with two of the officers. They were sympathetic, I guess, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. They told me they were going to check the home security footage. We had a small, simple system, just a few cameras covering the front and back. I sat at my kitchen table, my head in my hands, as one of the officers viewed the footage on his laptop. After a few minutes of silence, he called his partner over. Hey, check this out. I looked up. The officer turned the laptop towards. The screen showed the footage from the front door camera from just a few minutes ago. I saw myself, a frantic, terrified figure, following something. I saw myself screaming at the empty doorway. I saw the front door open, as if by a gust of wind, and then close again. But the man, the strange man with the yellow eyes, he wasn't there. He wasn't in the footage at all. It just looked like I was having a complete psychotic breakdown, screaming at nothing. There's no one there, son, the officer said gently. The cameras didn't pick up anyone entering or leaving the house all night, except I was still staring at the screen, my mind refusing acceptance, when I heard the other officer's voice in the other room. He was on his phone, his voice low and urgent. Yeah, another one, same as the others. The parents are catatonic. The kid is talking about a tall guy with yellow eyes. No, nothing on the camera, same as always. It's the fifth one this year. He trailed off. He saw me looking at him. The officers wouldn't tell me anything else, just that they would be investigating. So now I'm here, at the hospital. My parents are in a deep coma. The doctors have run every test they can think of. They have no answer. Their brains just seem to have shut down. I know what happened. He was real. He was a predator. And my parents were his nest, or his food, or something I can't begin to comprehend. He drained them dry, and then he moved on. And the officer's words, the fifth one this year. He's still out there. He's doing this to other families. And I could have stopped. I should have called the police the first day, the first hour, the moment I saw him sitting in my chair. But I waited. I was scared. I was confused. And now, my parents are gone, maybe forever, and it's my fault. I failed them. I was the only one who could see the monster, and I did nothing until it was too late.